welcome back to Off the Roll Podcast by STEK USA. I'm Michael Hahn, and I have with me today Stuart Wilson, owner and operator and drifter of Artisan Auto Styling. We're very fortunate to have Stuart on this podcast, leading us to episode 15, The Art of Drifting and Installing. So Stuart, thanks so much for taking some time out of your busy schedule and joining us here. I see a little bit of eye candy in the background there, and that might just be some topic for discussion today. How are you doing, sir?
For sure. I'm doing great. Thank you. Thank you guys for taking the time to have me on the show. It's really cool to be a part of it also. Thank you.
Yeah, our pleasure, man. We've been grateful to been working with you for a little bit over the last year. It's kind of where we started our relationship. And for our viewers and audience, do you mind giving just a little bit more background about yourself? We know that you're a PPF installer, how long you've been doing that, and along with drifting. I think these are kind of loaded questions, but how long have you been sliding cars?
Two-part answer there. So we got both sides of the spectrum. The drifting probably came about sooner than the PPF installer. So my father was a round track racer back in the day. So I kind of grew up around motorsports, and we grew up in the country. You probably picked up a little twang in my accent there. So I grew up in the country of Alabama, and four-wheelers, go-karts, all the good stuff. So we were sliding around before we knew what drifting was. And then I got into drifting because I wanted to do motorsports as a kid. And, my father, he got sick years ago. So things didn't really line up with that. So I kind of got my racing kicks by playing this game in the arcade, Initial D. And that's when it was like, oh, this is drifting. And but that was kind of the moment. I was like, oh, well, your life's over. So that's like, yeah, you're going to be hooked on this for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And then, so that's where the level of art started from. And then that led into becoming a paint protection film installer just through mutual friends. And it was funny because I actually found PPF through drifting, and it's kind of interesting how everything's playing out. So a friend of mine that I was buying tires to slide from my 350Z, he was a tire tech at Porsche. And the tires that they couldn't leave on Porsches because they expire. So, you have to get rid of them and cycle them out because the compound dries out. So they were otherwise going to be disposed of or going to garbage can. Well, he'd be like, hey, bro, I got some for you. So I'd go over there and get it cheap. And so he was kind of helping fund the drift stuff. Well, he was in the plastic dip, and he partnered with a paint protection film company that was local here. And they needed, at the time, to convert some mirrors from walk to satin. And so they used him to do the plastic dip on the mirrors. And then that kind of opened the conversation about, hey, are you interested in doing PPF? And he was like, I do not have the patience for that, but I know someone that does. And then the rest is kind of history. So I think it's kind of cool the way, as long as you're staying on the path and you're true to yourself and follow what you love, like doors will kind of find you at times.
Yeah.
And, just being connected. And so, sorry if that was a long-winded answer, but
no,
that's how it works.
That's great, man. That's actually really cool. Those two are kind of tied together. The guy that was helping you get your kicks drifting, or the same guy to kind of introduce you to the paint protection film space.
Yeah.
And
now it's come full circle to today.
Yeah, exactly. and we'll dive into that here in just a little bit. And for our listeners, where are you out of? The greater Houston area, if I'm correct, or is there a specific location?
Mm-hmm. Yep, Houston, Texas.
Cool. Awesome. And with that kind of transition, how long or how many years have you been now getting your hands on film or mastering the craft of paint protection film?
Mastering the craft. Let's see. I started paint protection film in 2013. So this is, I guess, going on officially. We're looking at 11 years, 10 years for sure, going on 11. So
yeah,
been an installer for a long time.
Great.
And certainly not a here and there sort of thing. We hit the ground running in 2013, and that was basically what we did all day, every day, Monday through Friday. As far as installation experience, it wasn't like, we have a PPF job here and there scattered throughout the year. It's like all day, every day, Porsche, Lamborghini, Ferrari, the whole 9 yards. It was just like boom, 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 boom. Every day it was like, here's another car, another car, another car, another car. So that the repetition was there right out of the gate. So it's kind of been that same frame for about 10 years. Yeah.
Awesome. Sounds like you hit the ground running, and obviously you've seen tons of changes within the industry within that time too. So that's really cool. Awesome, my friend. Well, we also want to kind of start the conversation by understanding, how did you get connected with STEK? When did our brand first come on your radar, and how did that relationship kind of start off?
Yeah, the first time that I worked with STEK, I was working with another company that I still have a great relationship with. And STEK had come by and dropped off some samples of the product. And we had a few people, because we would style cars and things like that. And ironically, we started out with the carbon fiber first, because what was happening is, like, customers would look for that carbon look, and then you would shift towards like a carbon vinyl, and they would be okay. But quite a few of them, they end up looking cheesy and kind of almost basket weavy, like they kind of have a texture that's not very realistic, and not what people are going for. And then you find something that looks really pretty visually, but outside, it's more like something you could wrap a laptop with, because in the real world application, the top coat just deteriorates so fast. So then the STEK carbon fiber came across, and we started working with that, and it was like, wow, this is it really was a game changer. And so you start playing with it. It's like, okay, it's a wet apply PDF, but then it can also do things that you would not expect a wet apply PDF to do. And it's like, okay, this product is a game changer, and this is the coolest thing. And we did it on a few cars, like a McLaren and an Aventador, and the reaction was the same across the board, that like, this is amazing. And especially when you put it next to a piece that's already carbon fiber, and you tell the difference. And sometimes it looks better than actual carbon fiber, which is pretty impressive, right? So that was the first time we came across STEK. My first experience with it. And once we wrapped a bike with it, it was like, okay, this product is doing something that is very different from everything else on the market, because that's not easy to conform to a bike tank, and then to get the result we got, it was very, very impressive. What we do at STEK, something special.
Cool. Yeah, and I think a lot of our viewers and listeners probably have some experience with carbon fiber wraps of some sort, whether it is most likely going to be a vinyl, and that's kind of that cheaper looking carbon fiber. It doesn't have as much depth. There is, as you're mentioning, some texture. So even if you're wiping it down with your microfiber, it might catch, some of those fibers. I know I've had some cars where the interior, pieces were wrapped in a carbon vinyl, and it looked a little cheap. As I grow up, get more mature, I don't have those kind of accents on the car anymore unless it's a real looking carbon fiber. So I think that makes perfect sense. You're working on those high end cars. You kind of needed a better quality solution for those folks. And absolutely, I've heard time and time out that our carbon fiber is one of the most realistic looking films, and I would definitely go to bat against anything else on the market to say check this out. There was a funny story I heard back in the day where one of our installers put it on their fender, and they had another detailer they were hanging out with, grabbing drinks over the weekend or whatnot. They went and checked out his car. I was like, oh man, that carbon looks awesome, thinking it was a real carbon fiber. And he almost had it, like yank his arm and be like, no man, I'm not kidding. This is a film. So it definitely has that kind of jaw dropping effect. And it might be a little bit hard for our viewers to see, but the car behind us is sporting another one of our carbon films, which would be our Forged. And that was a really, really cool project that we got to help support you in last year. So I want to talk a little bit about last year's activities. Maybe you can explain kind of the vision that you had for your car, and how we went out to different events and kind of what those reactions were as well.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. You guys want the long version or short version?
Give it to me however you like.
All right. So trying to keep it comprehensive about that. The way that all came about, I mean, honestly, the whole year last year with STEK was hands down, I mean, one of the best years of my life. And it was just so fulfilling to partner with a company that, when you pitch their vision, like when you pitch your vision to them, they get behind it and go, oh, like, this is a really good idea. And especially if you pitched ideas in the past, they're not necessarily received well, or, they think like, oh, that's never going to happen, or, oh, that doesn't work. And then you just realize like, oh, my ideas are good. I'm just pitching them to the wrong people. And then when you find a company that's like where the needs match, it's so much fun because it's one thing to just do a project, but when it's a win-win for everyone, and I think it just adds to the enjoyment. So it really started. I was a new distributor for STEK and was speaking with my rep Daniel. It was great, and we were having a conversation just about PPF and getting set up as a new distributor and installer, and it led to a marketing conversation. And then he said, "Oh, we also do fuel." And then it was a unique opportunity because I was like, "Hey, I'm set up to drive that event." And he's like, "What do you mean drive the event?" I said, "Well, I have a drift car, and we're doing ride along demos at Fuel Fest, and I think it would be a cool opportunity to collab." And so I pitched him this whole idea of getting some forged carbon PPF on the car, and you guys have a very unique forged red wine carbon fiber that looks amazing, and it's in line with my color choice red. It matches my father's book, and so just pitching that idea out there, and he's like, "All right, we'll put you in touch with Michael. I want you to tell him everything you just told me, and you might have a chance." I was like, "Okay, cool." And then I think there was a little bit of a timeline in there. And I was like, "Okay, well, we tried, and maybe nothing will come over it." And then it was you personally. You called me back and out of the blue one day, and I was totally caught off guard, like mid-install. I was like, "All right, well, that didn't okay, do something next time." And I'm like, "This is a great idea." So when you're working with this product, I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is happening." So it was just so exciting and so fun to do that. And it stemmed from the idea of getting cars from like HGK and things like that, where it's becoming really popular to have cars use all carbon Kevlar panels or carbon fiber panels. And so this was kind of like our own. And I literally just started as a frame shop, and I was like looking through the sample, like, what would be cool if we could put this on a drift car and make it look like the HGK cars, but it's also a conversation starter, because people are going to go, "Is this for carbon?" And when we say, "Hey, actually it's a PPF, and your car can look like this too." So it was just a great conversation starter, especially you guys were already present. So to put the trust in me to do the car and present it well, because you guys gave me creative control and said, we like what you're doing. We've seen your other stuff. So, have fun with it. And then to show up at Fuel Fest, and it was kind of, I don't even think you guys had seen the final product yet. And it was kind of like surprise, and to see everyone's reaction. It was very emotional and like overwhelming. And it was just like, okay, like we did that. And it was very fulfilling. It was one of the coolest moments of my life to bring that to reality, for you guys to hear my vision and believe in it and love the car. The last thing we want to do is come up with an idea, then you see it and go, "Ugh, like that was bad."
Like, oh, that's okay.
Yeah.
No,
for sure.
We were.
I didn't expect it to be received that well, and so that was like a dream come true. Really was.
We were really impressed. I think knowing that your car has some custom components to it, you kind of have a lot, to chew off, and just make sure that the install of this 10 mil thick wet application film actually looks good at the end of the day. And personally, just being around a lot of different installs, I wasn't too sure what we were going to see. We're going to be a lot of gaps and edges on the flares and all that kind of stuff. But you did a phenomenal job of really making it look like a painted or molded finish, and so I was super impressed. And for those listeners that aren't too familiar, Fuel Fest is a very cool consumer focused show where there's live music, there's live drifting, a lot of different vendors and activations, a little bit of a car show component as well. And so it gives a chance for the cars community, and they tour throughout the U.S. To go get involved with kind of this almost Fast and Furious feeling type scene. And that was something that we were the title sponsor of last year for the paint protection film category. So we had a lot of fun running around the country with those guys. And where the relationship with Stuart kind of divulged even further was that, well, hey, you're already going to this one event in Texas. how do you want to come along for the next set of events, and wherever there is going to be live drifting in their venues, can we get you out there to be representing STEK and showing our film in a very unique way where you're actually using your car and you're showing it off. You're getting it sideways and showing us all angles of that car and all abilities of it too. So that was really cool to see. And I think as a motor enthusiast and racer myself, we want to see these products get used. That's what they're made for, where you're going to get the most value. And so I'm curious too. You come out to a couple of those other Fuel Fest shows in general compared to this season and other events that you've ran your car in. Was there much difference in like maintaining it? And as we prepare for 24, we can get into that in just a little bit. But did you notice the car was in better shape than it would have been, or was it in worse shape? How did the film actually do to protect the surface?
Oh, the film did a phenomenal job, and it's kind of funny because it's so hydrophobic and it's so it doesn't really attract dust and dirt and debris like a normal vinyl wrap does. It's so hydrophobic that I have to be very careful with even installing the graphics onto the top because it does such a great job at repelling everything on it. But time and time again, it's so nice to see these cars getting so well taken care of, and it doesn't take near what you would think to maintain the look, and it's so much easier to clean. And I've bumped a couple of people, where like they've seen a fender that was, sacrificed for the cause in the name of drifting. And, I've got a little bit of flex in my kit, but the film flexes with it, and you can't even tell that I did anything. And then like you have like a little stuff here and there, I can take a quick detailer and go, look, the black mark come. And that's crazy in itself because the car takes 50% of the effort to look twice as pretty, and it basically always looks great on camera. So it doesn't progressively just get dirtier just from being out on track, and it cleans up so well. So maintaining the finish, it gets a lot of attention for being a pretty car, and it's half the work for me. So I'm kind of cheating a little bit, to be honest.
Yeah.
That's making
I think you're just starting ahead. There's a different way of looking at it, but
yeah, for sure.
Very cool. And I'm curious too, as far as your vehicle, maybe you can tell our listeners, what are some of the modifications that you've done? I know it's not over the top, but what is the kit that you have on it? What other components have you put or installed to make it a drift and competitive car?
Yeah, for sure. Coilovers are a must with every drift car. So we've got Silver's coilovers, and we're always playing with the spring rates there. We have the big one, the big game changer was putting the WiseFab full angle kit up front. That's one of those kits that through the drift career, I've always wanted to, run WiseFab one day. And it was like, okay, well now we've got a car that's decently sorted mechanically, so let's have a little bit more fun with the exaggerated angles. So that's a lot of fun, especially putting on shows, being able to exaggerate the angle out there a lot more than just a regular car or a simple drift kit. It is very exaggerated. It's exciting to watch people that see it. You kind of, when you go see drifting, the extreme side, that's a lot of fun to throw big angle into corners like never before. The other stuff that's great is just going overkill on the cooling department. So the big component of drifting and getting good as a driver is making sure that you have a car that's not constantly having to be wrenched. And sometimes less is more. And a car that you can just drive and drive and drive and drive, you'll see your driving capabilities, go up exponentially when you build a car for seat time, not something that's like 1 or 2 laps and you're changing. And there are cars that are that absurd, and it almost gets into a full-time job maintaining that. So having a car that you can, like this one's kind of wild. Like we can street drive to the event and drive all day, and then street drive home. And we're like, you street drive this? Yeah, it's fun, and you eat in a restaurant afterwards. That's really fun to make people go like, who does this? Because it looks like a pro-am drift car on the street. So it's kind of like fun to watch people's reaction. So the cooling is a big one. Like I have a big vents on the hood and all that. So getting the heat out of it today is huge because if you keep things cool, then that's less stress and that's more laps. So it's always the name of the game. So we have a running joke where if you build a car that you can hot lap in Houston, you can take that car anywhere. And we kind of proved that point last year because we certainly went to literally STEK sent us to both sides of the country. So we went all the way to California for one, and we went to New Jersey for the other one. So and it kind of proved it. So building cars that you can drive repeatedly, that's the catch. So cooling's a big one, especially in Texas.
Awesome. And this is kind of a unique question, but I think you're in a unique role as an installer, shop owner, as well as a drifter. Do you see any skills translating between both crafts, whether that's the mechanical wrenching and preparing of the car, looking at things a little bit differently or in more detail, maybe because of the detailing background, but also when it comes to the driving, are there any skills that you've developed that you see kind of correlate to both your profession and your growing passion for drifting?
For sure. Two things would be the hand-eye coordination, dexterity. So you kind of have to, like sometimes even with PPF, same thing with drifting. Like this hand's doing one thing while this hand's doing another thing. So like you have steering wheel and e-brake and your feet are doing pedals. So you have a little bit of a mental association with like, hey, I might need to stretch over here while also thinking about make sure it's floating over here. So there's a lot of multiple it's almost like a pat your head, rub your belly situation sometimes. And it's surprisingly more oftentimes than not, when you're working with film, there's a lot of this is doing something separate from your hand, and you got to kind of make it work together, especially working with pieces. So I think the dexterity of being aware of what's happening at multiple places, that's a big one, period over. Other than that, like the mechanical skills, like it's nice to be confident around cars and have an understanding of things. And maybe sometimes sometimes with PPF, you can relate it to like where a crash or an incident might happen on the street. And there's certain times where maybe people go overkill with trying to make something too much of a bragging rights piece and say, look, I did all of this in one piece. But in reality, if something happens to that piece, well, now you have to redo the entire bumper versus if like a lower lip was separate, well, now you can service that lower lip. And so there's a little bit of logic there, thinking like, this is a protective product as well as a, fashion film that changing the color. But oftentimes with gloss, it's there to protect and it's there to service. So making things overly complicated can bite you in the foot in both points, right? Drifting and PPF. Keep it simple.
Yeah. Keep it stupid simple. It's usually successful. That's what I like to say. And I think too, with that, it just reiterates the point that we've talked about before, which is just PPF is self-sacrificial. It's important to recognize that. And so as we prepare for the 2024 season ahead that we're diving into very quickly, we are changing the car a little bit, and I think you have some really good creative ideas. You don't have to share anything more than you want. But there's only a couple panels that we're going to replace and kind of clean up a little bit. And really that's preparing for an additional film to go on the car. And I'm really excited to kind of see that final result. We will be joining Stuart down at Circuit of the Americas for, the Super Lap Battle. And you'll be doing some more ride-alongs. And so I'm really excited to see the updated livery. You might see STEK a little bit bigger on the car this time, which we're happy to see. But there's also going to get some really cool content. So if you guys are curious, definitely stay tuned in. We'll have it on our YouTube. We'll have it across our social media. There is some cool shots from last year's efforts too, so we'll kind of splice those into this podcast however appropriate, so you guys can wet your whistle there if you're watching on YouTube, that is. And I'm curious, what other activities and what other kind of unique ways have you jumped in to kind of support STEK revolution this year, if you will, and being with some collaborations that we're working with? If you're open to sharing, are you excited about going out and doing some more film for other people in that drift community?
Yes, yeah, for sure. That one's a lot. I wasn't sure how much we wanted to reveal on that one. I'll defer to you. But yeah, if you're comfortable talking about it, I'm certainly comfortable talking about it.
Yeah. I think we can definitely talk about it. I think in particular, we have an arrangement going with Officer Dan, which if you guys are in the drift community, you're probably already familiar with. But Dan's been a long-term advocate for the scene and really, I think, a great influence from everything I can see on driving. And so he has this new kind of street build drift car that he's working on. And Stuart is going to be traveling out to his location to get some more STEK on his vehicle. And we're excited to see what kind of comes of that. It's a very unique paint that he had to get redone already. And so it makes sense to now protect that. And it was really nice that we could kind of connect all the dots here from drifter to drifter, but drifter to installer and installer back to STEK. Again, we are, a company led by passionate automotive enthusiasts here. So we want to be involved in these kind of fun ways, and we're really grateful for Stuart jumping on and helping. When are you planning on going down? I know it's just around the corner.
Yeah, it's right around the corner, metaphorically and literally. So we're actually, we're going to be hitting the road tomorrow, as a matter of fact. So this is the official podcast for the trip. So I just messaged him a little while ago and made sure everything's good. But we'll be headed out to New Mexico tomorrow, and then get started on that car. It was really cool. Again, just from idea, like concept to reality. And again, thankful for STEK's support on that. And it's a collaboration of everyone. And for him to, trust him as well, is also grateful for that. Because, just having people that you've never met come in and promise you a service takes a lot of trust and as well. So certainly grateful for that. That'll be a lot of fun, especially with that car, a C5 Corvette with a rocket bunny kit and authentic tandem kit. There's lots of replicas out there, but this one's one of three, if I'm not mistaken, that is the real deal. And it is painted midnight purple. And that color is extremely beautiful. It's also extremely difficult to get right. So it also deserves a very high caliber level of protection. And I can't think of any product better than STEK to do the job. I think there's a common undercurrent where I'm starting to notice that a lot of the installers or cars that are much more enthusiast-based cars and their works of art, like the RX-7 you guys just did recently, you start to notice that a lot of those artistic installs favor STEK film, and I don't think that that's a coincidence either. It definitely has a show quality finish to it as well.
Yeah.
Sure. So that one's a big one. I'm super excited to help preserve that car while he's doing what he's doing with it, because it is a multi-purpose car. So it's the perfect opportunity to showcase, perfect product on the perfect car. So it's great time to do that. And I've looked up to him for years and watched his content. So to even have the opportunity for the two worlds to collide with drifting and PPF, they actually be beneficial to one another.
I agree. I think it's a really good collaboration, good opportunity for us to see what Dan's about, a good opportunity for you to show him your stuff as well. And he should be rest assured, if you're able to handle that forged and do such good install as you have on your own Corvette, I think he's in very good shape, even though his Rocket Bunny kit is going to be pretty wild, very unique, and there's not exactly a template out there for something like that. So you'll have your hands full, but that's exciting that it's just around the corner, man. And as we wrap things up, I'm curious, what are your goals as an installer, as a drifter, over this next year and into the future? Are there any kind of big goals that you've set for yourself?
Yeah, we have quite a few goals, like short-term and long-term, and obviously some are really big and some are more initially attainable, but honestly, this year, I'm very much enjoying the wave that we're riding and building this momentum of creating attention, showcasing products in a fun way. And it's not, not just a car parked somewhere and being like, hey, we're going to partner with multiple people and show these products in action. So that's a short-term goal, is just continue to do that. And obviously we're still drifting and all of that. So we want to be more competitive this year. Last year was a lot of test and tune and get comfortable and get more consistent and kind of work a lot of folks out and change this, change that. We like this, but we don't like that. So the car is kind of at a consistency level where we're hoping to be more competitive and, running tighter tandems that higher up on the grid this year as far as placing goes. So that's the motorsport side. But as far as the PPF side goes, honestly, just enjoying merging the two worlds and creating tension that obviously leads to more PPF sales and more quality installs for customers, and just new relationships across the board there, and hopefully opening doors to people entertaining the idea of styling their cars in a different way. Like the Tesla Cybertruck is you guys just did in purple is a fantastic example. That wasn't even on the table until a couple of years ago, and now it's starting to become mainstream, and people are starting to consider fashion PPF as an option. So that's really fun and exciting to see the growth in that sector of the market as well as the clear PPF, and just showing off what these products can do. And they are different, and they do have a level of quality that I think a lot of people are trying to imitate, but short of, unfortunately. And there's not a lot of products out there that will deliver what they say they're going to deliver, and it hold up long term and look the way it looks. So it's kind of a rare breed. So excited to just keep pushing the brand and growth for not only STEK, but for our brand Artisan, and just seeing where it all goes. And we'll ride this wave as long as we can and make the most out of it. If there's an opportunity to partner with other people with special cars that maybe can see some benefit from an installer coming directly to them, I'm certainly open to continuing that. And I enjoy that. And because these cars all have stories, and there's usually, the cars are awesome, but there's usually an even cooler person, behind the build, because they're the ones that came up with the idea and came up with, the vision. And I think COVID kind of maybe restructured people's thoughts, and we've had a lot of good results with going directly to consumers or customers, as you would call them, that have collections of cars, and maybe they do value someone coming directly to them where that car doesn't have to move, or that car doesn't, they can keep an eye on it, and they feel it's almost like a luxury to be like, I don't have to go anywhere. So that's something that I'm hoping to keep diving into and building trust and rapport with other owners out there, and we'll see where that goes. Who knows where we might end up next, and where we're going. I know we've got a couple already this year, but to ride that, that's another short-term goal. Just to just see where we end up, what kind of cool projects benefit from our services. So that's a big one.
Yeah, ride that wave, see where it splashes. I do think that can be really valuable too, and a lot of cases, drift season is getting very busy right now. Everyone's getting ready to get their cars out there and hit these first events. So there's a lot of need for that protection, but a lot of these cars are somewhere in between running and not running, or the motor's still being worked on, hasn't gone in yet. So I think there's a lot of unique uses for that, and that's where you can connect with the car owners as an individual, as a drifter and enthusiast yourself, but also as an artist, of your craft, and being able to install paint protection film. So that's great. Sure. And I guess maybe one last question for you. Is there any piece of advice that you would give to folks that are looking to get into the drift community or into the automotive space and in the detailing world? Was there anything that you've kind of learned along your way that you think would be helpful to pass on to someone looking to come up into the automotive space?
The one big one, I was talking with somebody about this the other day. I think that it's very, very important to make sure that you're in an environment that supports learning, and sometimes learning, it does have a steep curve. Like we'll take PPF for example, and this is with all things automotive. There's always a level of complexities to it, and you think like for example, like I'm just going to do the brake job on that car. Well, then you get into the brake job and you realize like, oh man, well now I need a special tool, and this is seized, and then this, and so sometimes there's different levels that you don't even foresee. And having a mentor and an environment that is constructive and not just critical, that's like, hey, like you have to learn how to fail fast and fail forward, because your first one's never going to be your best one. And, the educational system is like, I don't want to get too political or whatever, but like in school, like if you get a bunch of things wrong, you get a bad grade. Well, in life, like you get it wrong until you get it right. And then it's like, hey, like all of these mistakes, you learn what not to do. And they say like the master has failed more times than the beginner has even tried. Right. So for me, if there's a way to mess it up, believe me, I have messed it up in spectacular fashion. And even the most simple task sometimes can become like, great, I was just supposed to take a badge off. And now that just turned into like a nightmare scenario. So when you learn all these little things what not to do, you're kind of left with an efficiency of, you know because you know it. And you've been through so many mistakes and ups and downs. So that the advice that I would say there is just make sure that you're not beating yourself up so much, and don't spend too much time thinking that you're not good enough to do something. You just need to be in an environment that supports your learning and supports your trying. And if you're committed, that it takes more to stay committed to it and until you get it right. Versus some people, they pick something up really quick and they're like, oh, that's easy, I get that. But the person that struggled with it longer is going to put so much more into getting good at it that a lot of times their understanding at the end of the day is so much deeper because they have had to work so much harder to come over that crest. I got this. So oftentimes the people that maybe they are a little bit slower to learn, I feel like they end up better on the back end because they cared enough to stick with it. So that's the best piece of advice I can give.
Yeah. Stick with it. Don't let those failures, discourage you, and use that as instead motivation to improve. Keep learning, as you said, fall forward. Or fail forward. So that's great, man. I think that's really good advice. I hope our listeners have enjoyed hearing a little bit more about yourself and are interested to see what exactly this grand reveal out at COTA next month will look like. So if you guys are interested, we'll make sure to link Stuart's social below, and we'll make sure to be posting it across our social media as well. But thank you again, Stuart, for your time. It was a pleasure having you on. And for everyone else tuning in, we'll catch you on the next one.